My name is Sharon L. Nevin, and I'm 32 years old. 2 years ago, after nearly a decade of skipping vacations, driving the same dented car, eating leftovers at my desk, and pretending I didn't mind saying no to things I wanted, I bought my dream apartment downtown. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't some glittering penthouse with champagne in the fridge and marble in every corner. But to me, it felt like proof. Proof that the years of working late, saving quietly, and carrying myself through loneliness had not been for nothing. It was a 2-bedroom place high above the city, with wide windows, clean light, and a master suite that felt almost too beautiful to belong to me. That room became my sanctuary. The bathroom had a soaking tub, a separate shower, and heated floors that made winter mornings feel less cruel. The closet was larger than the room I grew up in. The balcony overlooked the skyline. And every morning, before emails and deadlines swallowed me whole, I stood out there with coffee in my hands and reminded myself that this life was mine. My younger sister, Emma, was 26. She taught elementary school, had a laugh that could fill a room, and had always been the baby of the family in every possible way. When we were kids, if she cried, everyone ran. If I cried, someone told me to be strong. I never resented her for it. Not completely. I told myself every family had a rhythm, and ours just happened to make me the reliable one. Emma got engaged last month to Tyler, her boyfriend of 3 years. Tyler worked in retail management, quiet in that way where you could never tell if he was peaceful or just tired. They lived together in a studio apartment across town, in a neighborhood where the buildings were older, the elevators complained, and parking was something people fought over like inheritance money. After the engagement, Emma started coming over more often. At first, I loved it. She'd bring pastries, curl up on my couch, talk about bridesmaid colors and venues and whether our mother would cry during the vows. For the first time in years, it felt like we were sisters instead of two people who only shared holidays and old photographs. I should have noticed how often her eyes moved around the apartment. She admired the balcony too long. She opened the closet twice, claiming she was looking for the bathroom. She asked whether I really used the soaking tub, whether the blackout curtains were custom, whether the guest room ever felt wasted. I answered without suspicion because I wanted to believe she was proud of me. Last Saturday, she came over for lunch. We sat in my living room with sandwiches from the deli downstairs, the kind with too much mustard and paper wrappers that never folded right. Emma barely touched hers. She kept smoothing her napkin against her knee. Then she looked at me and said, "Sharon, I've been thinking about the bedroom situation." I blinked. What bedroom situation? She gestured around my apartment like the answer was sitting beside us. Your master bedroom. It's beautiful, obviously. But don't you think it's a little much for one person? I laughed because I thought she was joking. Good thing the one person paid for it. Her face did not change. I'm serious, she said. Tyler and I are getting married next year. We're starting our life. We need space. You have all this room, and honestly, the master suite makes more sense for a couple. The sandwich in my hand suddenly felt heavy. Emma, I said slowly, are you asking me to give you my bedroom? Not give, she said quickly, as if the word offended her. Share the apartment differently. You'd still live here. The guest room is perfectly fine for you. You and Daniel don't even live together, so it's not like you need a couple's space. Daniel was my boyfriend, not my husband, not my roommate, and apparently now part of her housing calculation. I stared at her, waiting for embarrassment to cross her face. It never came. She leaned forward with that gentle teacher voice I'd heard her use on children who refused to line up. Think about it logically. Tyler and I have two people's clothes. We'd actually use the balcony for romantic nights. The big bathroom would help us get ready in the morning. You're one person. One person who owns the apartment, I said. Her mouth tightened. That's not the point. It is exactly the point. She pushed her plate away. You're being selfish. The word landed harder than it should have. Not because I believed it, but because I knew, instantly, that she had rehearsed it. Selfish, I repeated. For wanting to sleep in the bedroom I pay for. For hoarding space you don't need while your sister is trying to build a future, she snapped. Family helps family, Sharon. There it was. The phrase our family used whenever they wanted me to surrender something without calling it surrender. I told her no. Calmly at first. Then firmly. Then with the kind of stillness that comes when anger becomes too clean to shout. Emma stood up, trembling with offense, and told me she couldn't believe I was choosing square footage over her happiness. When she slammed my door, I told myself she would cool down. The next morning, my mother called. Sharon, she said, in that disappointed voice that made me feel 12 years old again. Emma told me what happened. I closed my eyes. She asked me to move out of my own bedroom, Mom. She asked you to consider her needs. No, she asked me to become a guest in my own home. My mother sighed like I had failed an exam. You've lived alone too long. It's making you hard. By noon, my father had texted, maybe just think about it. By evening, Emma had sent me articles about the housing crisis, rising rent, young couples struggling to start out, and minimalism as a path to happiness. Each message felt less like information and more like evidence being gathered for a trial I hadn't agreed to attend. Then the relatives started calling. Aunt Patricia said family was supposed to sacrifice. My grandmother said I would regret pushing Emma away. One uncle asked why I needed all that luxury when Emma and Tyler were about to begin married life. By Wednesday, I realized something terrifying. Emma had not made a request. She had made an announcement and expected the rest of us to pressure reality into obeying it. And for the first time since I bought that apartment, I looked around my beautiful, quiet home and felt something cold move through it. Not fear exactly, a warning. For the next 2 days, I tried to convince myself the whole thing would fade. Emma had dramatic moments before. She could turn a small disappointment into a family emergency and then somehow act normal by the following weekend. I thought this would be like that. Then she texted me on Sunday morning. I know things got heated. Can Tyler and I come over and clear the air? I don't want this to damage us. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part of me, the older sister part, the one trained to keep peace even when peace was just silence with bruises underneath, wanted to believe her. So I said yes. They arrived at 2 o'clock with coffees, soft smiles, and the kind of forced warmth that made my stomach tighten before anyone even spoke. Emma hugged me too hard. Tyler gave me an awkward nod and held out my drink like an apology offering. We handled it badly, Emma said once we were seated in the living room. I got emotional. You got defensive. We both said things. I almost corrected her. I hadn't asked for her bedroom. I hadn't called her selfish for owning her own things. But I let it pass because I wanted the conversation to end peacefully. For 5 minutes, it almost did. Then Emma set her coffee down and said, "So we've been thinking about how to make this work for everyone." The room seemed to shrink. I looked at Tyler. His eyes dropped to the floor. "Make what work?" I asked, although I already knew. "The living arrangement," Emma said gently, like she was afraid I might misunderstand basic words. "We realized we came at you too suddenly, so we put together something more practical." Tyler pulled out his phone. He looked miserable as he opened a spreadsheet. Emma leaned closer, suddenly bright. "Right now, we pay $1,800 a month for a studio. We thought $400 a month to you would be fair for the master suite, since we'd still be sharing the apartment." I stared at her. She continued, "Plus, you'd save money on utilities and groceries because we could split some things. And you'd have people around, built-in company, home-cooked dinners, someone to watch the place when you travel." "So let me understand," I said. "I pay the mortgage, the taxes, the HOA, the insurance, and you pay $400 to live in the best room while I move into the guest room." Emma frowned. "You're making it sound ugly." "It is ugly. It's family. That doesn't make it less ugly." Her expression hardened, but she stood up anyway and said, "Let's just see if our furniture would fit before we get dramatic." Before I could process what she was doing, she walked toward my bedroom. "Emma," I said. She didn't stop. She entered my room like she had a right to it. Tyler followed slowly, almost apologetically, but he still followed. Emma opened a measuring app on her phone and began pointing at walls. Our dresser could go there. The bed would actually look better against that side. Tyler, look at this closet. My chest tightened. She stepped into my walk-in closet and ran her fingers over the custom shelves I had spent months planning. We'd need to remove some of this. Sharon doesn't need this much closet space. That was the moment something inside me went quiet. Get out, I said. Emma turned, blinking. We're just checking. Get out of my bedroom. Don't be ridiculous. Get out of my apartment. Tyler moved first. Maybe we should go. But Emma's face had already changed. The hurt sister vanished. In her place stood someone furious that the world had refused to rearrange itself. You always do this, she said. You act calm, but you're controlling. You can't even have a rational conversation. There is no conversation. You are not moving in. You're ruining everything. No, I said. I'm stopping you from taking what isn't yours. I walked them to the door. Emma shouted over her shoulder that I had anger issues, that Tyler now saw how unstable I was, that Mom and Dad would hear about this. They did. Within 20 minutes, my phone became a courtroom. My mother accused me of screaming at Emma. My father said I had gone too far. Aunt Patricia asked whether I needed help managing my temper. By evening, the story had become that I had violently thrown Emma and Tyler into the hallway after inviting them over. The next morning was worse. Emma posted photos on Instagram. My bedroom, my closet, my balcony. I didn't even know when she had taken them. One photo showed the view from my private balcony with the caption, "Future morning coffee spot with my love." Another showed my closet with heart eye emojis. The final slide was black with white text. Sometimes the people you expect to support your dreams are the first ones to crush them. I had to post my own statement, explaining that I had never offered my bedroom, my apartment, or any part of my home to anyone. The fact that I had to publicly clarify ownership of my own bedroom felt insane. Then Emma created a group chat with me, her, Tyler, and our parents. The name was Family Housing Solution. Inside was a schedule. Week 1. Sharon begins moving personal items into guest room. Week 2. Emma and Tyler bring essential furniture. Month 2. Full transition. Month 3. Trial period evaluation. I left the chat. My mother added me back. I left again. That night, I changed the locks, emailed my building manager, and told security that no one, not my parents, not Emma, not Tyler, was allowed upstairs without my direct permission. Emma called it paranoid. I called it necessary. And deep down, beneath the anger, I began to understand something I didn't want to admit. Emma wasn't trying to convince me anymore. She was preparing as if my answer had never mattered. A month after Emma first mentioned the bedroom situation, my mother invited me to Sunday dinner. Just family, she said. Your father misses you. I miss you. Can we please have one normal meal? I wanted to say no. I should have said no. But there is something humiliating about missing people who are actively hurting you. So I drove to my childhood home with a knot in my stomach and a bottle of wine in the passenger seat, like a peace offering. The moment I stepped inside, I knew it was not dinner. The dining room table had been cleared and arranged like a conference room. My parents sat at one end with printed papers in front of them. Emma and Tyler sat on the other side with laptops open. There were folders, pens, sticky notes, and a projector aimed at the wall where our family photos used to hang. I stood in the doorway, still holding the wine. My father cleared his throat. Sit down, Sharon. I almost laughed. What is this? A family meeting, my mother said carefully. We need to resolve the apartment situation. There is no apartment situation. Emma gave a small, wounded smile. That's exactly the problem. You keep refusing to talk about it like an adult. I looked at Tyler. He looked pale. I should have turned around and left. Instead, shock made me sit. Emma opened her laptop, and the first slide appeared on the wall. Optimal living arrangement for the Nevin family. I stared at it in silence. She had made a full presentation. Slide 1 was called The Problem. According to Emma, the problem was inefficient use of family resources. Slide 2 compared local rental prices and showed how difficult it was for newly engaged couples to afford decent housing. Slide 3 displayed a floor plan of my apartment, with the master bedroom labeled Emma and Tyler's space and the guest room labeled Sharon's private area. My private area? In my own home. Slide 4 explained the financial benefits. They would pay $400 a month. I would supposedly save money because they would help with groceries, share streaming services, and increase emotional value through family connection. Slide 5 listed lifestyle improvements for me. Shared dinners, companionship, home security when I traveled, less loneliness. That one made me look at my mother, because loneliness had been the word she used against me my entire adult life. Whenever I chose peace over chaos, they called it loneliness. Whenever I protected my space, they called it isolation. Whenever I said no, they called it proof I needed people more than I realized. Emma moved through the slides with practiced confidence. Tyler sat beside her, silent, rubbing his thumb against the edge of the table. Then came the timeline. Week 1 and 2. Sharon transitions personal belongings into guest room. Week 3 and 4. Emma and Tyler move bedroom furniture. Month 2, full adjustment. Month 6, review success metrics. When she finished, she looked at me like she had just solved a problem for both of us. No, I said. Emma's smile stiffened. You haven't asked any questions. I don't need to. The answer is no. You're not even considering it. I considered it the first time you asked. The answer was no then. It is no now. It will be no forever. Tyler finally spoke. We already gave notice on our apartment. The room went silent. Even my parents looked stunned. I turned slowly toward Emma. You did what? Emma rushed in before Tyler could say more. Our lease was month to month. It didn't make sense to keep paying when we knew we'd be moving. You knew nothing. Her voice cracked. We trusted you. No, I said. You gambled on me being bullied hard enough to surrender. My mother flinched. Sharon, that is a cruel way to put it. What would you call it? Compromise, Emma snapped. Compromise requires consent. You are impossible, and you are homeless by choice. The words hit the room like a glass breaking. Emma burst into tears so quickly it almost seemed timed. My mother rose from her chair and wrapped her arms around her. My father lowered his head, disappointed in everyone but somehow mostly in me. Tyler stared at the floor. Emma sobbed that I was ruining her engagement, that she would have to postpone the wedding, that deposits were already paid, invitations were already designed. And now everything was falling apart because her own sister cared more about a bathtub and balcony than blood. I stood up. Emma, you created this. You fix it. My mother looked horrified. You'd really let your sister struggle? I did not create her struggle. She believed you would help. She believed she could take. My father's voice sharpened. That's enough. No, I said. It isn't. Let me be very clear. If any of you enter my apartment without my permission, I will call the police. My mother gasped. On your own family? If my own family breaks into my home, yes. I left while Emma cried into our mother's shoulder, and my father stared at me like I had become someone he no longer recognized. The strange part was, I felt the same way about them. 2 days later, he asked if we could meet for coffee. I almost ignored him, but something about the message felt different. No accusation, no guilt, just exhaustion. When I arrived, he was already sitting in the corner of the cafe, hands wrapped around a paper cup. I'm sorry, he said before I even sat down. I waited. He swallowed hard. Emma told me you had agreed months ago. She said you were hesitant about details, but that the bedroom switch was basically decided. A cold pressure settled behind my ribs. She showed me texts, he continued. But now I'm thinking she edited things. Or maybe she explained them in a way that made them mean what she wanted. She lied to you, I said. He looked down. I think I know that now. For the first time, I saw Tyler not as Emma's silent accomplice, but as another person caught inside her version of reality. That did not excuse him. He had walked into my bedroom with a measuring app. He had sat through the presentation. But his shame looked real. "Why are you still marrying her?" I asked. He stared out the window for a long time. "Because the invitations are ordered," he said quietly. "Because deposits are paid. Because everyone expects it. Because I keep thinking she'll calm down when things settle." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I gave him the name of a therapist Daniel had once recommended for a friend. Tyler thanked me like I had handed him a map out of a burning house. After that, things grew quieter. Emma and Tyler found a temporary place with one of her friends while they searched for another apartment. My mother called every day with updates I had not asked for, each conversation ending with some version of, "I hope you can live with yourself." I could, but I also knew silence from Emma was never surrender. It was usually planning. 3 months after Emma first decided my bedroom should become hers, I went to Vancouver for a 5-day work conference. I almost canceled. Not because I was afraid of flying or because the conference didn't matter, but because leaving my apartment unattended felt different now. It no longer felt like simply locking my door and trusting the world to stay outside. It felt like leaving something alive and vulnerable behind. Before I left, I reminded building security that no visitors were allowed up without my direct approval. I checked the new lock twice. I checked the hallway camera. I told Daniel where I was going and asked him to keep his phone close, just in case something felt wrong. He kissed my forehead and said, "You shouldn't have to protect your home from your own family." I laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "No," I said, "I shouldn't." The conference went well. I gave my presentation. I smiled through networking lunches. I stood by hotel windows at night, watching rain slide down the glass, trying not to think about Emma. For once, there were no texts from her, no emotional posts, no relatives calling me selfish. The silence should have comforted me. Instead, it made my skin crawl. When I returned home, the first thing I noticed was the smell. Not bad, just wrong. A sweet vanilla candle scent hung in the air, thick and unfamiliar. My apartment had always smelled faintly of coffee, clean linen, and the cedar blocks I kept in my closet. This smelled like someone else's idea of home. I set my suitcase down slowly. Nothing in the living room looked destroyed. Nothing was obviously missing. But the throw blanket was folded differently. A framed photograph had been shifted. The shoes by the door had been moved into a neat line I never made. Then I opened my bedroom door. For a moment, my mind refused to understand what I was seeing. My bed had been pushed against a different wall. My reading chair was gone. In its place stood a white vanity table with a round mirror and gold handles. Pink and cream pillows covered the bed like decorations in a bridal suite. The simple artwork I loved had been replaced with cursive prints about love, laughter, and forever. On my nightstand, beside my lamp, sat a framed engagement photo of Emma and Tyler. I stood completely still. Then I walked to the closet. My clothes had been crammed into one narrow section. The rest of the closet was filled with Emma's dresses, shoes, handbags, and labeled storage bins. She had drilled extra rods into my custom shelving. She had moved my winter coats into plastic bags. She had made room for herself by erasing me. For several seconds, all I could hear was my own breathing. Then I pulled out my phone and called the police. While waiting, I documented everything. Every wall, every box, every hole drilled into the closet system, every item that did not belong to me. On the kitchen counter, I found a printed roommate agreement with blank signature lines and a calendar marked with move-in phases. Not even after breaking in had Emma imagined needing my consent. The security footage told the rest of the story. 3 days into my trip, my mother came to the building. She told security she was there to water my plants. I did not own plants. She had a key, copied from the emergency spare I had given her years earlier, back when I still believed emergencies meant broken pipes and hospital calls, not betrayal. The footage showed her letting in Emma, Tyler, and 2 of Emma's friends. They carried boxes, decor, garment bags, and tools. Emma moved through my bedroom like a host on a renovation show. She pointed at walls, laughed, adjusted pillows, and told Tyler where their wedding photos would go. Tyler looked uneasy in every frame, but he still carried boxes. When the officers arrived, they were polite but cautious, as if expecting a messy family argument. Then I showed them the footage, the messages, the group chat schedule, the prior warnings, the lock change records, and the email to building security. Their expressions changed. Emma arrived less than an hour later, probably called by my mother. She came in crying before anyone accused her of anything. "This is a misunderstanding," she told the officers. My sister agreed. "She's just overwhelmed." I stared at her. She looked straight at a police officer and said, "We had a verbal agreement." Something inside me finally broke cleanly. "No, we did not," I said, "and she knows it." Emma turned to me, eyes shining. "Why are you doing this? I was trying to make this place feel beautiful for all of us." "All of us?" I asked. "You broke into my home. I had a key." One officer said calmly, "Having a key does not mean you have permission to enter." My mother arrived next, furious and breathless. She told the officers this was a family matter. She said daughters and sisters shouldn't be treated like criminals. She said I was emotional, overwhelmed, possibly not thinking clearly. I looked at the woman who had taught me to lock the door when I came home at night, and realized she had become the reason I needed stronger locks. The officers made Emma remove every single item she had brought in. She sobbed while carrying boxes. She called me heartless. She called me cruel. She begged Tyler to say something. He said nothing. He just moved her things with the face of a man watching his future collapse in real time. I pressed charges, yes, against my sister, and yes, against my mother. The fallout was immediate. My father called screaming, then crying, then screaming again. My grandmother left a voicemail saying she no longer recognized me. Relatives sent Bible verses, insults, and long messages about forgiveness from people who had never once asked Emma to repent. Emma posted online about being punished for trying to help her sister. My mother told people I was having a breakdown, but something else happened too. Tyler ended the engagement. He called me a week later and said the police report had been his wake-up call. He told me Emma had planned the apartment, the wedding, the marriage, and even his reactions like he was another piece of furniture to arrange. He said when she lied to the officers about a verbal agreement, he finally understood that love, to Emma, meant reality bending around her feelings. "I kept asking what would happen when you came home," he said quietly. "She kept saying you'd understand once you saw how nice it looked." I didn't know what to say to that. "I'm sorry," he added, "for all of it." Emma moved in with a friend and reinvented herself online as a survivor of family betrayal and a broken engagement. She started writing long posts about boundaries, which would have been funny if it hadn't been so exhausting. My mother received a criminal trespass charge and later took a plea deal for community service. Emma received a formal warning and I obtained a restraining order. My parents eventually started counseling. My father admitted he had spent years avoiding Emma's tantrums because giving in was easier than confronting her. My mother still believed I overreacted, but even she began to understand that using a copied emergency key was not love. It was a violation. As for me, I put the apartment on the market. Not because Emma won, because she had turned my sanctuary into a crime scene, and I refused to spend the rest of my life flinching every time the elevator stopped on my floor. The apartment sold faster than I expected. Before closing, Emma texted me from a friend's phone. "So you're selling our apartment? Where are we supposed to live now?" I did not answer. There was nothing left to explain to someone who could look at my name on a deed and still see hers. Daniel helped me move into a new building across town with a doorman, cameras, and no spare keys in anyone else's hands. The first night there, I stood in my new bedroom surrounded by boxes, exhausted and strangely calm. It was smaller than my old room. The view was not as dramatic. The closet was ordinary. But when I closed the door, I knew no one else had decided they belonged there. That was enough. Tyler and I stayed loosely in touch. Not close at first, just two people who had survived the same storm from different sins. He eventually started therapy and once sent me a card that said, "Thank you for accidentally saving my life." I laughed when I read it, then cried harder than I expected. I lost a lot of family over that apartment. Or maybe I lost the illusion that they had ever respected me when I said no. But I kept my sanity. I kept my boundaries. I kept the right to decide who enters my life and who does not. Sometimes family is not the people who share your blood. Sometimes family is the people who respect your locked door. And for the first time in months, when I slept in my own bedroom, I did not dream of someone taking it from me.